Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄, dear future members, dear friends, I have the pleasure to welcome you to our third Capital Markets Day. I'm happy to see that so many of you registered. We have more than 300 registrations, a lot more than last year. I guess they are, because of the rain, they are not yet all there. My name is 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗺𝗅. I'm a member of the Executive Board, and I have again the honor to guide you through this event. As we already started with a small delay, I will shorten the talk about the agenda. After the welcome from our chair, 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗺, we have the honor to welcome our Finance Minister, Gilles Roth. Our still young association feels honored that Mr. Roth agreed to act as a keynote speaker. Afterwards, we will jump into more technical topics, which will be handled from our working groups. Currently, 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍 has 9 working groups with several subgroups, and they're all very active. 47 publications have been issued since the incorporation of 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍. This is the result of the lively and open discussions during the working group meetings. At this stage, I really like to thank you, all the members of the working groups, for their commitment, for their motivation, and for all the fruitful discussions. Without you, 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍 wouldn't be a success. So, I will now hand over to 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍𝗺, the chair of 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍 and chief executive officer at Luxembourg Stock Exchange. You all know her and what she's doing for the financial marketplace. Therefore, I abstain from an extensive introduction. Let me just congratulate her again for being awarded Commander of the Order of Merit of the 𝗟𝘂𝗅𝗍 of Luxembourg by the Grand Duke on the National Day 9 days ago. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Holger. What an introduction. Minister Roth, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the Luxembourg Capital Market Association, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all tonight for this new edition of the 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍𝗄 Capital Markets Day. And I hope that I will also keep my introduction brief so that we learn from the past, and we try to keep this session very lively and as short as possible so that we can join the networking cocktail afterwards as soon as possible. Especially because tonight we have a busy evening ahead of us with lots of interesting topics to address, including first securitization and debt security issuance processes in Luxembourg, followed by the ECB trials and the path to CDBC, and finally the EU's new securitization regulation. And last but not least, of course, this reception, which I hope you will all be able to join. But before we get to that, and as we gather here today, I'd like to start my welcome remarks by emphasizing the principle of unity in navigating challenging times. And speaking about unity, I am thinking about the importance of united Europe, as outlined in the 6th Annual Capital Markets Seminar organized in Luxembourg in early June by the European Commission, the EIB, and the ESM. I think we can all agree that Europe is currently faced by a growing number of challenges. Aging population, energy crisis, inflation, strategic autonomy, high interest rates, and to add to that, a significant level of political and economic fragmentation, as we are witnessing, unfortunately, across the continent, and again recently through the French elections. Of course, these are all sources of concern for Europe as a whole, but also for all of us here in Luxembourg. But just as unity has brought us together today, in the face of adversity, it's also unity that should prevail. Our European capital markets are at a critical juncture, and it's our collective responsibility to steer them in the right direction. The Capital Markets Union plays a pivotal role in that respect, and in fact, its very essence is to integrate, to strengthen, and to deepen our markets, to foster digitalization, to promote sustainability, and to reinforce the competitiveness and the attractivity of European capital markets on the international stage. Within 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗶, and on behalf of our association, it's also our responsibility, our duty to echo these messages. Now, digitalization, sustainability, these aren't just buzzwords. These are very concrete objectives that we must work towards and integrate at the heart of our strategic priorities. And this is, by the way, also why we, as 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗶, place such great importance on these two topics. Because the truth is that the success of European capital markets in the long run is inevitably tied to how effectively we can integrate innovative and sustainable practices in our industry. But to do so, we must leverage our expertise, mobilize private capital, and as outlined in the European Commission's retail investment strategy, encourage the participation and contribution of European citizens in the EU capital markets. We must channel this capital to European corporates and SMEs and support their growth ambitions. Of course, that's easier said than done. But there were, according to a report published by the European Commission earlier this year, an estimated 33 trillion euro held in private savings across the EU in 2022. I see the ministers even being astonished. 33 trillion euros, it's huge. And while the European gross household saving rate was in Europe of 12.7% in 2022, in Luxembourg it reached 18.1%. However, unlike in other regions of this world, this wealth is not being leveraged to meet the EU's strategic needs. Instead, a large part is being redirected and invested outside of Europe, primarily in the United States. This is alarming, and it underlines the urgency to redirect these resources towards fulfilling our strategic objectives, supporting our economy, and driving sustainable growth right here in Europe, as outlined by the CMU plan. So how can we turn the tide and ensure that European savings are being leveraged regionally, benefiting EU citizens, EU companies, and the wider EU economy? Well, first and foremost, we must promote knowledge sharing and support the development on financial literacy in Europe. And of course, our association, the Luxembourg Capital Market Association, already plays a pivotal role in driving knowledge sharing practices within our industry. Through our numerous working groups that were underlined by Holger in introduction, regular publications that also Frank Mausen showed to some of you who attended the AGM last week, a very thick pack of publications that were made within the 5 years of existence of this association, and proactive communication. We are all very committed to this process, and we must continue to drive these efforts forward. But knowledge alone is, of course, not enough. It's the first step. To bolster investments among European savers in alignment with the CMU's objectives, it's essential to enhance financial infrastructure and provide compelling financial incentives. These include offering accessible and inclusive solutions that act as gateways to capital markets, fostering greater participation and investment. In other words, we need to create a robust and attractive regional ecosystem that is predictable and capable of fostering trust and the right environment for institutional and retail investors to be actively involved in and benefit from capital markets. Ultimately, by increasing participation in the EU's capital markets, by channeling private capital into the European economy, European citizens will benefit everywhere. And of course, they also will benefit right here in Luxembourg. And this is precisely why the Capital Markets Union holds such an importance, because it has the potential to bring us together, to unite us, and to drive us forward. Consumers, businesses, investors, entrepreneurs, policymakers, financial institutions, we all need to play our part in this process. So as we continue to navigate these challenges, let's also continue to be agile, adaptable, open to embracing new technologies and new ways of working. And more importantly, let's stay united and align our efforts in creating a regional financial ecosystem that fosters trust and transparency, because this is what will help us ensure the resilience and the competitiveness of Europe in the long term. Because together we can turn the challenges into opportunities and create a future that is bright, sustainable, and prosperous for all. The potential is within our grasp, and now we must seize it. On that positive note, we are very honored to have with us Minister Roth, Luxembourg's Minister of Finance, for a keynote speech that he will deliver at the occasion of the Luxembourg Capital Markets Day. Thank you very much, and now the floor is to Holger. Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as Julie mentioned already, it's my honor to welcome on stage our Finance Minister, Gilles Roth. Mr. Roth was appointed Minister of Finance last November, as you all know. He obtained a degree in law and a degree in business administration from the Université 𝗘𝘃𝗲𝗵𝗁. After practicing as a lawyer in Luxembourg, he became government attaché at the Ministry of Finance in 1995. And then, as from 1998, he became government advisor and then senior government advisor at the Ministry of Finance. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗖𝗍𝗄 and the Minister Roth has a few things in common. We are both Luxembourgish. Both are highly interested in financial markets. Both are working very hard every day to make Luxembourg a safe and reliable global financial hub. Both, I can say, have a hands-on mentality. And last but not least, both celebrate their birthdays on the same day. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗖𝗍𝗄 did that already 5 times, Mr. Roth a little bit more. The floor is yours.
So, dear Julie, ladies and gentlemen, it's my real pleasure to join you today for this year's edition of Capital Markets Day. First of all, let me underline that I welcome the fact that 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗖𝗍𝗄 Luxembourg has a dedicated Capital Markets Association. I've had the pleasure of meeting 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗖𝗍𝗄 a few months ago to discuss your priorities. While Luxembourg is seen rightly as a pan-EU fund, banking and insurance hub, we should never forget that capital markets laid the foundations for Luxembourg's role as an international financial center. And even more importantly, that our capital markets ecosystem today still plays a central role. Indeed, we could hardly call ourselves an international financial center without the existence of a robust capital markets environment. With this Luxembourg Stock Exchange and Clearstream, we are home to leading infrastructures in international capital markets. Moreover, global investors and corporates have access to highly specialized service providers and also law firms in Luxembourg to assist them in complex cross-border operations. And finally, we have a sophisticated legal environment that is geared towards international capital markets. And this includes globally recognized laws on securitization, fiduciary structures, and also financial collateral arrangements. Since Brexit, we have also seen Luxembourg law gain a more prominent role in international capital markets as issuing law. And let me reassure you that as Finance Minister, I am not only fully aware of the importance of capital markets to our financial center, I also intend to act wherever necessary to ensure that Luxembourg remains a key hub in this space. And this includes a competitive tax environment, As you know, and also announced by our Prime Minister Luc Frieden in his State of the Nation address, I will lower the corporate tax rate by 1 percentage point as of next year. This is only a first step. I will also introduce new tax measures to help you attract and also retain talents you need to grow and develop your activities. And I have also heard you loud and clear on securitization. For competitiveness reasons, I understand that we need to address the current issues around interest limitation rules in the context of ATAD 1. I will therefore submit legislative amendments in the coming days to the Council of Government. This being said, I want to stress that compliance with ATAD 1 in law and in practice remains key, as shown also by the ongoing infringement proceedings related to the interest limitation rules. More generally, I intend to continue also modernizing our legislative framework to ensure that Luxembourg maintains a competitive edge. I am shortly submitting a fourth blockchain law. This will be a further step in our efforts to establish Luxembourg as a global hub for digital assets and also for tokenization. The main objective is to provide as much flexibility and legal certainty as possible to issuers and financial institutions that want to leverage distributed ledger technology in capital markets. And as a financial center, Luxembourg needs to further climb up the value chain. This is already happening. We are seeing it in the area of private assets, where Luxembourg has become a key center for alternative funds. I have also recently launched a 10-point action plan on sustainable finance for my ministry to support the transition of our financial center, including via training and education, green fintech, and also innovative financing. Luxembourg's role as a hub for corporate banking and corporate finance is also growing. The recent arrival of new corporate banks from the US and the UK is a testimony of this. And in this context, I also fully support the Luxembourg Stock Exchange's ambition, as announced recently at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange Day, to develop its offer on equity side, notably for European SMEs. And collectively, as a financial center, we need to be more ambitious. The stars are aligned today. There is a renewed interest to strengthen Europe's capital markets, and this is to be welcomed. It is a question of the EU's global competitiveness, and the 𝗟𝘂𝗅𝗖𝗍 reports contain a number of useful ideas in this context. This includes a long-term European savings product as well as a renewed focus on securitization. The latter will be key if we want to free up banks' balance sheets and raise the capital we need to achieve the dual transition in Europe. We thus welcome that there is now a new impetus for a capital markets union, but we must make sure to focus on the right priorities. It probably doesn't come as a surprise to you that I believe that centralization of supervision is not on these priorities. There are many reasons why a capital markets union has so far failed to live up to expectations in Europe. But the lack of central supervision ain't one of them, as our American friends would say. Markets fragmentation is a result of differences in national insolvency laws, divergent national marketing requirements, or occasional national gold plating in implementing EU tax. Central supervision will not be able to address on any of these issues. Instead, we should focus on removing existing barriers and fragmentation, reducing red tape, boosting financial education, and broadening the supply and demand for financial products. I'm absolutely convinced that Luxembourg has a central role to play in the EU capital markets of tomorrow. And I'm ready to work with all of you to make sure that Luxembourg's financial center is and also remains at the heart of efforts to make the EU economy more competitive, more innovative, and also more sustainable. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Roth, thank you very much. What I've heard, that gives us hope. We will see. Yeah, before coming to our technical topics, I will just give a brief overview about the securitization market in Luxembourg and in Europe and some high-level results of our securitization market survey, which PwC and LuxCMA did together last December. We see that's the evolution of the Luxembourg securitization market with 150 newly created vehicles in 23, 22 less than in 22, and already 33 vehicles created in the first quarter of 24, Luxembourg remains successful. With around 100, the number of liquidation decreased again, so that means we ended up with around 1,500 vehicles at the end of 23, which is a plus of 53. The vast majority of these vehicles are securitization companies, but there's also 108 securitization funds managed by 102 management companies. That was a strong increase on the securitization funds, 15% more. So the funds currently represent 7% of all the SVs in Luxembourg. We have also seen that the modernization of the securitization law with the new partnership structures becoming slowly successful. At the end of 23, there were 1.2% SCS and SCSP. That's not much, but also on the first quarter of 24, already 3% were established as an SCSP. But we know that this number does not really present the market. It's a number of compartments, the number of series which really present the market. And now let's have a look into Europe. There are two main locations for SPVs in Europe. That's Luxembourg and Ireland. Both locations have around 1/3 of the market. Ireland a little bit more, Luxembourg a little bit less. In number of vehicles, as you can see, Ireland has around 1,677 vehicles, which is 32% of the market. Luxembourg has 29 with 1,621 vehicles. On the series, unfortunately, Ireland also has 1/3 with 9,700 series. Luxembourg only 1/4 of the market with 6,900 series. So Ireland, unfortunately, has 3,000 series, almost 3,000 series more than Luxembourg. And in terms of volume, Luxembourg is number 3 in Europe after Ireland and Italy. If you look a little bit more deeply into the series and the vehicles, we see that Luxembourg has lost its leading position to Ireland in 21, especially when we're looking at the series. Here you can see the big break. If we dive a little bit deeper in that, we can clearly see a connection with the implementation of ATAD 1 rules in Luxembourg and the unclarity, which Mr. Roth already mentioned, and the positive way Ireland at least communicated their implementation. This is also supported by the LuxCMA Capital Markets Survey. But let us first look what we are doing good. And what we're doing good is Luxembourg is well done on legal certainty and flexibility. That's what the participants said, which is provided by the dedicated securitization law. In addition, also the possibility to create compartments is really, really highly appreciated by the participants, which then is resulting into legally valid segregation of assets and liabilities. On the flip side, unfortunately, as already mentioned several times, ATAD uncertainty is clearly the main obstacle of the Luxembourg securitization market. And as you can see, also the participants builds its hope on the new government to solve this unclarity, which will be hopefully then done in the next days. So 96% of the survey participants said that the new government will have a positive and very positive impact on the securitization market. So there is a lot of hope, and yeah, I think what we heard now, things will turn positive at the end. Yeah. Good. Then let us jump to the first technical topic. We will now hear from 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗅𝗂𝗏 about the publication of a 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅𝗍 paper on issuance of debt securities in Luxembourg. The paper discusses the key advantages of issuing securities in Luxembourg with specific focus on the issuance of dematerialized securities. The paper was published last Wednesday, is available on the 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅𝗍 website, and was prepared by the Listing Act Working Group in collaboration with the Infrastructure Working Group. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅 is one of the participants of the Listing Act Working Group and was deeply involved in the preparation of this paper. She's a senior associate and a knowledge lawyer at 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍 in Luxembourg. She has been working now in Luxembourg for more than 10 years. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅𝗍, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you, Holger, for a very nice introduction. It is with great pleasure that I'm here today and that I'm able to present our new initiative. And I'm also very honored that I can represent all members of the 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅𝗍 that actually contributed in production of this paper. In particular, I would like to express my thanks to Arnaud Delastien, head of Insurance Working Group, Infrastructure Working Group, Caterina Marquez from Clearstream, 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗅𝗍𝗂𝗅 and her team from 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗍, as well as Paula Pereira from Luxembourg Stock Exchange and her team. Let me start my presentation by explaining rationale behind this initiative and what were our main objectives. The decision to prepare this paper came shortly after the recent publication of Euronext Milan, which was very keen to promote Italy as a place of issuance of the dematerialized securities, and also which very well promoted Italian law as the governing law for dematerialized securities. Given that Luxembourg is at the forefront of dematerialization since 2013, so more than 10 years, it was somewhat evident that we need to parallel this effort and obviously champion Luxembourg as a regime for dematerialization. However, our ambition was not only limited to presenting Luxembourg as a pioneer in dematerialization. One of the objectives that we had in our minds when preparing this paper was to promote Luxembourg as a comprehensive capital market ecosystem. As we already heard, this is something that makes Luxembourg so unique when it comes to issuing securities. In fact, Luxembourg is one of the few jurisdictions which have at their territory located all key stakeholders. That includes Luxembourg Stock Exchange, which is the leading listing venue for international bond listings, Clearstream, which is the international central securities depository, and to complement, we have also 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗂𝗅𝗍 that acts as a central securities depository and operates as a security settlement system under Luxembourg law. In addition to these key players, Luxembourg also offers a full body of service providers and highly qualified advisors. As a result, Luxembourg can offer a full value chain for capital market transactions, meaning that it is possible to structure the entire capital market deals from Luxembourg. Another objective that we had in our minds was also to provide some sort of guide to the market. We had in mind that we can provide the reference material that we can then distribute and maybe offer to some interested party who do not necessarily need to know Luxembourg or how the securities are issued. The paper therefore explains different actions, processes, and entities involved in the process of debt securities issuances in Luxembourg. The paper also demystifies certain legal concepts and clarifies positions and rights of the issuers and investors under Luxembourg law. Building upon this initiative, another reason why we wanted to publish this paper was to identify opportunities for efficiencies. Especially, we discuss key advantages of dematerialization, and also we discuss some recent modernization effort. As a final point, not necessarily as an objective of our paper, but I wanted to add that a key value of this paper lies in the fact that we were able to gather all knowledge and experience from key capital markets participants that are present in the Luxembourg capital market community. Returning back to the scope of our paper, the paper does not discuss only dematerialization, but it also delves into so-called immobilized form of securities. Allow me to explain the key concepts and also explain why we decided to do so. When debt securities are to be traded on the trading venues, they need to be issued in so-called book entry form. That means they need to be issued in electronic records. This can be done as a result of either direct issuance in dematerialization form, so direct issuance in electronic records in the accounts of the respective financial institutions, or they can be issued as a bureau securities or as a registered securities, and then subsequently dematerialized. In this case, we issue global note, which is a paper document that is kept and held by the settlement systems. The global note represents the entire issue. Already while explaining this, you can see that the use of global notes adds additional layers of complexity, and there is therefore a general wish to simplify this type of systems. Also, the markets move slowly towards electronization and digitalization, and therefore the use of dematerialized securities should be the preferred option. However, when we look around, global notes still remains the most popular way of issuing securities in the national capital markets. There are several reasons. I will not go too much into detail, but there are some legacy reasons and also reasons to the underlying governing law. For these reasons, it is still not fully possible to completely eradicate use of global note, and use of fully dematerialized securities is some sort of a long-term vision. However, although we do not eliminate global notes, there have been recently some important decisions and modernization initiatives to make the issuance of the global note more efficient and modernized. First of all, beginning of June this year, the ICSDs announced that all issuers will have the option to issue securities and sign them electronically. With this, we will remove the problems around the vetting signatures and also physical depositing. At the same time, it was announced that so-called e-global note will be also introduced. For now, this global note is still in sort of testing phase because it is only available to restricted type of securities. These include registered securities held under the new safekeeping structures, which are the structures attributed to Eurosystem eligible collateral. These e-global notes can be only governed by UK law, and they are only available to UK domiciled issuers. In addition, we have seen some modernization efforts also in terms of digitalization of processes. This concerns mainly post-trade services, reporting. There is also a strong call for KYC digitalization and automation of documents. In terms of shortening of settlement cycles, this is another initiative that would certainly have impact on trading funding and generally market liquidity. This initiative certainly reflects on on the new initiatives that came from US, where they actually shortened the settlement cycle to 𝗘𝘃𝗲𝗁 already. Coming to my last slide, I wanted to summarize the key takeaways of the paper. Firstly, when it comes to dematerialization, Luxembourg implemented the dematerialization regime since 2013. The advantages of issuing securities in dematerialized form are actually multifold. Firstly, we use less intermediaries that are involved in the process, which means lower cost, which means lower operation and legal risks. Also, we do not have problems with physical depositing or wet ink signatures. Dematerialization also helps to accelerate time to market for new issuances. Lastly, LuxCSD is the only Luxembourg settlement organization for dematerialized securities, and it is worth to note that it enables to settle the transaction in central bank money, which is the safest and most liquid settlement asset. As to the dematerialization, this has been already tested. We have seen the key example for such issuances, for example, in case of landmark climate awareness bond issued by EIB that took place shortly after adoption of this regime. When it comes to securities issued in dematerialized form, we need to know that they need to be governed by Luxembourg law. As was already mentioned today, Luxembourg law is, as a governing law for securities, is already being seen as quite beneficial. It is very flexible. It offers various structuring possibilities. We do not need trustees. We do not need fiscal agents. And it has also a robust framework for the protection of the ultimate investors and issuers. The Luxembourg law, as a governing law for securities, also is constantly innovated and allows and paves the way for new technologies such as DLT. Due to its many advantages, it has been very popular by many issuers. We have seen the European Commission, EIB, ESM. Also after Brexit, we have starting to see banks and insurance, they're adopting the same approach. From our practice as lawyers, we started to see also corporate issuers doing the same. As a last point, the paper also includes descriptions of the latest features or innovation initiatives of different key players. In this way, Luxembourg is showed as a jurisdiction that is committed to constant modernization. I would need to conclude here. I hope that you will like the publication, that you will help us to promote it. And for the publication itself, I wish it will have far reach, hopefully even beyond Luxembourg. Thank you.
Christina, thank you very much. So we come to our next panel, but before and during the preparation of the panel, just an announcement. Romania and Netherlands are playing currently, and Netherlands are leading now 1-0. So sorry for the Romanians in the room. The next topic is of paramount importance for the future of our financial system, the European Central Bank trials. These trials are a crucial step towards central bank digital currencies, exploring new technologies and economic models that have the potential to transform our understanding and the use of digital currency. The ECB is committed to ensuring that Europe remains at the forefront of financial innovation while maintaining the stability and security of our monetary system. Today, we can delve into the details of these trials, examine their potential impact from the perspectives of different market participants, and understand how they could shape the future of financial transactions in Europe and beyond. The panel will be moderated by 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗏, who has been with Clearstream in Luxembourg for over a decade. He has covered several client-facing roles in the organization, including head of relationship management for the Northern Europe region. And in the recent years, Roberto joined the Digital Securities Services Department, where he is driving the commercialization of D7 digital services to international clients and coordinating the client stream of the ECB trials project at Deutsche Börse. Roberto will welcome on stage many experts who will provide us insights into the subject. Roberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No update about Italy, I guess, right? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's panel. The idea today is a bit to talk about blockchain, what institutions like Deutsche Börse or the other panelists on the stage are doing with blockchain, and in particular what we are doing for the CBDC topic, so the central bank digital currency topic, and the digital euro. So how the panelists around me are using blockchain, again, on the security space, but as well on the cash side. But before getting into the topic, right, maybe let's start with a little bit of history of the digital currency, right? You all know in 2008, there was the white paper called the Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This document was published, and the principle that they were foreseen in this model, in the Bitcoin model, had the potential, and we're looking to revolutionize a bit the financial market and the way we use the cash and we see the cash. But what happened? In 2010, there was one of the first transactions, actually I think it was the first transaction using Bitcoin, where one of the early adopters used 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas. At the time, the value of those Bitcoin were $41 US. As of this morning, the same pizza costed 580 million euro. So even for Luxembourg, that's a bit pricey, I would say. But so Bitcoin is one use case of this blockchain technology. But like that, like I said in the beginning, we could have many other use cases, right? We at Deutsche Börse, we have experimented on the security side. We have some live transaction on the security side, but also other entities like the ECB and central banks are looking to use this technology, the blockchain, to understand how we can build the digital euro of the future. And then today, we would like to a bit deep dive on this topic, right? I will do a little introduction of the panelists, a brief introduction, and then ask a question to each one of them. So let's dive into this exciting conversation. Xavier, I'll start from you, if that's okay. Xavier Roth joined the EIB in 2009. He covered many roles in the funding team of the EIB, launching different type of instruments. And in recent years, has been involved in the Bitcoin, in the transaction, sorry, I should say, in the transaction that took place on blockchain. No Bitcoin in the EIB, sorry.
I can confirm that.
So in 2021, there was the first blockchain issuance, right? Since then, you have done a few. Can you share a bit with us what's the view on blockchain technology at the EIB, on tokenization? Is this the standard of the future?
Well, I don't have my crystal ball with me, so I have no clue about the standard of the future. But certainly we recognize at EIB fairly early that the blockchain technology could be fairly disruptive. And for an issuer like ourselves that plays a leading role in the development of capital market, we've been heavily involved in the development of green bonds, of all the risk-free rate successor rate with SONIA, Euro STR, and so far. We really needed to understand the technology and see how it could impact our business model and capital market as a whole. Also, it was very important for us, once we realized that this technology indeed could have a profound impact, to make sure that as a public institution, we could, in a way, force players to collaborate with one another to prevent, as much as we can, the emergence of one technology that would be completely privately owned and that could be in the interests of a single corporation, but not necessarily as a market as a whole. As most of you would know, EIB is a non-for-profit organization, so what we care about is market and the general public. So we are willing to use our network, our resources, and so on to make sure that something will be beneficial for all players. So with that in mind, quickly we realized that when it comes to blockchain, we had to do a transaction in order to really understand the pros and cons of the technology. And so we did several transactions, as Roberto mentioned. We did a transaction on public blockchain, and then we switched to a few other transactions on private chains, trying different technology, different models when it comes to the cash as well. So we've been experimenting with CBDC-like solutions, and as well as commercial bank digital currency type of solutions. For us, the benefit of the technology lies mainly in the reduction in reconciliation, okay? At the moment, an issuer like ourselves spends a lot of time reconciliating data, okay? And it takes an enormous amount of time that is very unproductive. An example that I give very often, but I think is telling. When we've been working on development of the new risk-free rates in collaboration with the central banks, we had to work with, most of the time, daily compounding, okay? So the coupon structure of the bonds that we would issue was generally more complicated than very plain vanilla zero coupon or fixed rate transaction that would pay a coupon once a year. And then we realized that given the daily compounding mechanism, something that would be in a way super simple because everybody agrees on the set of documentation is in fact very complicated because the EIB has to perform the calculation, the investors have to perform the calculation, the paying agent has to perform the calculation, the bank hedging us, because typically we also hedge this transaction either on a cross-currency basis or interest rate swap basis. They also have to perform the calculation. So you have at least 4 different players performing the exact same calculation. Nobody ever comes to the same results. And then we need to spend weeks reconciliating. Very often the back offices of many institutions have been outsourced to Poland, to India, to whatever. So sometimes you need to have conversation with people in different languages, across different time zones, with all the cultural differences that can arise from these sort of discussions. So it's a painful process, to be honest. While if the calculation is done on the blockchain directly, you can have, in a way, a golden source that all players would see and all players would recognize as a trusted source. Maybe in the future, and I'm sure there would be also some lawyers on the panel, we could reach a stage where what would have force of law is not even the paper documentation, but the smart contract itself. So the computer code at some stage maybe could even have a force of law. So then you would even eliminate one more steps. So reconciliation, massive impact. Reduction of cost, because you can automate a lot of process. You can eliminate some aspects. For instance, if you do repo transaction, for those knowing what a repo transaction is, where, for instance, you would, well, effectively lend a security. Let's say you lend the security to somebody and then you want to sell the security. Maybe by the time you sell it, you have not getting the security back from repo, so you are failing on the sales because you cannot deliver something that the lendee has not returned to you right away. So it's messy, right? While with blockchain, all this process could be automated. And finally, when it comes to the capital requirement, nobody wants to fail on transactions. So very often, whenever you have to make payments, you make sure that the money is deposited on your account a few days before so that everything is ready for the payment to process, which means that you have, for large institutions, billions and billions sitting unproductively in banking accounts waiting to be transferred, wired, or whatever. While with blockchain, if everything is completely automated and you are guaranteed that there is no mistake anywhere in the process, well, you can work with much lower capital requirement because your capital, in a way, can be constantly optimized. And you don't have to deposit cash for sitting idle on bank accounts. So I think if it answers your question, generally that's why we've been working on blockchain technology.
It does. Very interesting. So cost efficiency, process efficiency. That's one of the first starting point of our discussion, right? Beatrice, I would move to you now. Beatrice Rigidel, you know her as well. She leads the issuer services 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗄, right? She follows the institutional banking department and the institutional banking client of the bank, but as well she was in different areas of the security services within the organization. Like Xavier was saying, we have a new technology, new standard, different technology that could be applied, different type of decentralized finance application and way to use the blockchain. At 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗄, how do you see this opportunity? How do you evaluate the risk around these new technologies?
Thank you, Roberto, for inviting me to this panel. First of all, I would like to say I'm not sitting here as a specialist of blockchain, and I think it's interesting to have generalist people talking about the topic, because I think it's a topic we have reached a point everybody's involved in this topic, and people who are not really familiar with this world should not be frightened, because we are all sharing, and I think 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄 is also there to share questioning and different points of view. So that said, how do we consider a blockchain at 𝗟𝘃𝗃𝗄? I would say in a very pragmatic way and very wisely. But maybe let me develop this around 4 different angles. The first one being the political and strategical perspective. The second one would be the commercial point of view. The third one would be maybe the technical side. And in the end, the operations, and probably I will come back to your saying about operations. But let's start with the political and strategical perspective. We have a very favorable environment to proceed. We can align to a modern vision of the country. We can use legislation, encouraging initiatives. We can benefit from skills we have on site. People are not always in Poland. We also have in Luxembourg very, very skilled people. And we have agile and motivated talents ready to move forward. So what do we do? At 𝗟𝘃𝗃𝗄, we've been looking at this technology for a few years now. We do research, we participate to different projects. We even implemented blockchain in pieces of processes in production in some of our business. Concerning capital markets, we have been analyzing this very closely. We could probably go to production somehow to a certain extent and within a defined scope. Why do I look like mitigating my wording on this? Because there is a second angle, the commercial angle. As a bank, we need to pay a lot of attention to our client needs and to their expectations. And if I look at our institutional clients, what do they say? On the issuer side, they say, I want to be funded. And on the investor side, they say, what is the return on investment? That's the key. And none of them, for the moment, came to us saying, I want to issue something in blockchain specifically, because blockchain is a way to achieve things, but it's not the target itself, from a commercial perspective. So this is something we need to take into account, because and there I come to the third aspect, the technical side. Have you ever tried to open a change request with your IT department? The first thing they would say is, what is the business case? Second would be, what is the return on investment? And here, the business case does not come from the commercial side. Probably it comes from somewhere else. So it explains why we will not probably invade the whole market with our 𝗟𝘃𝗃𝗄 blockchain, because we have to take into consideration other priorities from our clients and other expectations, but we are looking at it very closely, because exactly what you said, Xavier, there is a big impact on operations. And this is there that I would like the audience to be aware of the fact that we will all be involved in this, because we can reduce costs, we can be much more efficient, provided that we find a way to have an interconnection between the systems. Because, you know, blockchain, as you said, there are different systems, there are different currencies. How do we link this together? How do we ensure that any counterparty could be involved? It's not that easy. And even within the bank, how to link the blockchain itself to all the rest of the processes in the bank. So probably it's going to be a step-by-step approach, and probably we will not move to blockchain from one day to another.
Thank you, Beatrice. Catherine, I would move to you, if that's okay. So Catherine Gott is a product manager, is one of the lead in the development of our D7 platform. I say ours, right, because we work for Clearstream, but as well the same platform will be used as well for Lux CSD here in Luxembourg, and it represents a bit the basis for the participation to the ECB trial. Maybe a word about that, about the ECB trial, right? This is a call to action that the ECB, I'm sure Michael will share a bit more about that, but it's a call to action that the ECB has done for market player, for participants in the market to utilize their blockchain system in connection to the central bank solution proposed by the different providers. But Catherine, with Beatrice, we were talking about applying only to a certain part of the flow, right, the blockchain technology. I mentioned already D7. D7 already used the digitalization of instrument as a starting point to go into the blockchain. There are 40,000 instruments eligible in Germany, the intention to move to Luxembourg, but it would be interesting from your perspective, why do we need to start from the digitalization before we move into blockchain?
Thank you, Roberto. Yes, indeed. As you mentioned, we have 40,000 digital issuances that are live on our platform, D7. It's more or less 8 billion euro. So we are talking about securities that are centrally and digitally registered with Clearstream Germany. As you say, we started our digital journey with Germany and retail structured product, because back at that time, I think it was back in 2021, there was a change in the German law with the eCecurities Act, allowing the dematerialized issuances. So basically, we took this opportunity to digitize the issuance process, because we are talking about products that are issued in mass. We are talking about thousands of issuances per day. And for each single issuance, we had to print and deposit a certificate in our vault in Hausen. So basically a lot of manual work, a lot of inefficiencies. And with this digitization process, we speed basically the issuance process, because issuers are able to issue intraday. We also increase the issuer experience by reducing the turnaround time to issue and trade from at least 24 hours to a few minutes. And we also create new opportunities for issuers, because they can now issue financial instruments that are more in line with the market conditions. Now, next to retail structured product, we included as well debt capital market instrument, commercial paper, bonds on our platform. But it's true with Germany, it was, we laid basically the foundations, because we had always the intention to extend the platform to Luxembourg and to the international market, leveraging the good legal and regulatory framework that we have in Luxembourg. So now, talking about foundations, we basically when we started to digitize the issuances, it was the starting point of the digital journey, because it enabled us to get the relevant data that is required to then automate the life cycle management of the financial instrument. So to make it more clearer, when looking at these 40,000 instruments, we basically created them as smart digital objects, kind of data container, machine readable, that are centrally digitally registered, but then settlement, custody, asset servicing continue to take place in the traditional legacy rails that we know today. T2, T2S, basically. And it was precisely to ease the adoption of the new technology for our customers without incurring development costs. We know that market participants, they are not progressing at the same speed when moving to digital, and that's also what you mentioned, Beatrice. So we need to find flexibility, interoperability between the different ecosystems. And we think that D7 and LuxCSD as market infrastructure must play the role of such a connector between the three ecosystems. And now that we have this smart digital object that I was referring to, we have the good basis to turn them into tokens and then to use blockchain technology for custody and settlement instead of using the traditional settlement rails.
Thank you, Catherine. Now from one Lux CSD, we move to Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Philippe, you all know him as well. Philippe Van Eck is leading the project management function at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. He's involved in the development of various products and the implementation of various products at the Lux SC, especially when we talk about digital assets and DLT. We look now at the aspect of the settlement, of the issuance. Now, when we move into the listing, into the stock exchange business, right? Luxembourg Stock Exchange has been very active in this space. Can you give us a bit of benefits for issuer? For instance, Catherine talked as well about data, digital object. I know that the Luxembourg Stock Exchange is close to the ESG topic. How do all these parts go together?
Thank you, Roberto. I think we're all facing the same problem or challenge, which is that we all see DLT developing. We all see the potential benefits of DLT. We probably all believe that it will play a role in capital markets going forward, but it has been difficult for the moment to identify a vertical which would go from proof of concept to real industrial processes. And basically, that's the challenge to which we were confronted at the stock exchange when we rolled out a first step in that direction in order to support those type of instruments 2 years ago. And the first step we took actually to be also very pragmatic was actually to open to security tokens in agreement with our regulator, an existing product which is our securities official list. So it is basically the approach was to allow to provide visibility to those securities, to these issuers, for those security tokens that they were issuing according to standard guidelines that we had been putting in place, allowing them to publish also indicative price and make all the documentation related to the security tokens in question available in the same way we do it for other securities, actually. We've been and we are the only stock exchange, MiFID regulated stock exchange in the EU which has been doing that. I think I speak under your control, Xavier, that most, if not all, of the EIB proof of concept actually are on the securities official list so far. That was the first step. But obviously, what everybody is looking at going forward is admission to trading. And as you were alluding to, Roberto, well, closing the loop and being able to go from admission to trading potentially up to final settlement and asset administration. And in that respect, I think we've seen less development even in the market because we are operating under certain regulatory constraints in that respect, and I'm sure 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗧 will allude to these. But they're also, in a very pragmatic approach, we've made sure that we were ready to support our customers. So at this stage, what we're able to do is that we have confirmation that we could accept securities issued under the DLT pilot regime, which is a specific regime to support DLT securities that has been put in place by the European Commission. We could accept them on our MTF market. The truth is that we only see now, like more than a year after the entry into force of the pilot regime, some institution going for the licenses, allowing them to support the issuance of those type of securities. We would be extremely happy to accept on our markets also security token that would be issued under the DLT Law 2, so the law on dematerialization, which has been explained before. But the fact is that for regulatory reasons, we need to work hand in hand with a CSD located in Luxembourg in order to do so. And in that respect, your announcement, Catherine, is very much welcome. So we hope we'll be able to even more support the Luxembourg environment in that respect. And we are open to other models. So a few months ago, we accepted an issuance from the World Bank on our regulated market because it was issued under a DLT infrastructure that was under a CSDR license. So the way we position ourselves very practically is, in the respect of all the regulation we are submitted to, support the issuers, support the issuances, and allow several type of issuances to land on our products, basically, be it on the sold side or on the market side. Benefits for issuer. I think it's difficult to clearly highlight benefits at this stage because, again, we are in a proof of concept phase. So we need to refer to expected benefits. And, well, there was a survey of which the results were published last week, which surveyed more than 300 financial institutions. And it seems that in terms of expected benefits, for the shift is going from new revenues more to cost savings since a year or two now. So cost saving is probably one of the elements through automation, through digitalization, as mentioned by Xavier, by the reduction of reconciliation layers, as you mentioned, and possibly also by sharing DLT infrastructure. So not having 20 institutions running 20 infrastructures, but having maybe some of them or all of them, we can dream, landing at least on the same basis infrastructure. And there are some works or some recommendations from the BIS which are going on in that direction for the moment. Second benefit would be a greater flexibility through the use of smart contracts. You could imagine a world where each security would have each of its characteristics embedded and automated within its own smart contract. The trade-off then being to choose between something very tailor-made for each security or something which can be industrialized and where you have some level of standardization so that you can issue securities on a large scale. And another benefit that was alluded to by Xavier too is actually the single source of truth that can constitute the DLT. So a single source of truth which is immutable and where all parties which are involved can refer to, be it for calculating coupons, be it to review or to report on transactions and so on. However, I think it's important to say that most of those benefits will fully depend on the way the DLT is leveraged. So we can create a world on DLT which will be even more fragmented than what we know today. Or we can indeed try to benefit from this distributed ledger characteristic And in that case, indeed, those benefits will be, it will be possible to grasp them. So probably we're at the stage where we should start moving from POCs to more standards and a certain level of co-petition, at least at infrastructure level, while there will be still a lot of room for competition on top of it.
Thank you, Philippe. ภิokha, you were summoned already a few times by the other panelists. ภิokha is a counsellor in Luxembourg for 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗄𝗆, specialized on fintech. So we have heard already the Luxembourg Blockchain Act, right? What can you tell us for issuer, for investor in general? What type of adaptation is needed in the documentation that supports the issuance to cope with the new digital asset topic?
Sure. Thank you, Roberto. And good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So maybe one positive note from my side. Indeed, since 2021, our Luxembourg dematerialized law actually explicitly recognizes the use of DOT, which is actually really providing legal certainty to issuers and investors. And maybe I can also reassure issuers and investors that from a legal, let's say from a purely legal side, I'll not speak about regulatory side, but from a purely legal side, the choice taken by the legislator was actually to include this technical component to already well-known legislation, which of course leverages on regulated market infrastructures and market participants. And hence, in terms of legal documentation, one should think that there should not be that many differences with traditional bonds issuances under the Dematerialized Act. Of course, that's under one caveat. We have to take into account the nature of the technology and what we are creating. Let's say, I'll speak mostly about digital bonds, I think, because these have been the main, let's say, instruments that we've seen an uptake and issuances on, let's say, in a more digitally native form. So in terms of issuance documentation, speaking about, I mean, under control certainly of Xavier from the EIB, but let's say in terms of issuance documentation, I think these are certainly the standard agreements that you see for normal traditional bond issuances. There are certain, let's say, elements which pertain to the technology. If we think about, I don't know, offering memorandum, we can certainly speak about additional risk factors, which can be maybe technology-driven around, let's say, what happens if the technology doesn't work or malfunctions, or there is a cyber attack, or also related to the nature of the instrument itself. I think it was alluded certainly that to this stage, at least to this stage, the main part of the digital bond issuances have been unlisted or not listed on a regulated venue. So secondary market has been limited for those instruments. So indeed, you find those type of risk factors in the prospectus. And maybe also in, let's say, in T's and C's. I think one of the main key elements we will see is typically the form of the bond, how it's transferred, and let's say, not that many specific clauses because of the digital nature of the bond. Where certainly technology plays a key role are in the service agreement and the platform agreements. And these are heavily, let's say, related to the technology and of course, tailored to the specific use case and platform that is being used. I think one maybe, or another maybe a good note for the issuers, they traditionally not party to these platform agreements. And of course, investors, it very much depends on how they invest in these instruments, on whether they actually directly invest into the bond or they tap into, let's say, secondary market through an existing, let's say, participant to the specific platform. I think one point which is so important is, of course, if you are issuing digital bonds, one can think if these are offered to the public, prospectus regulation certainly is a key, let's say, legislation which one takes into account. To date, the digital bond issuance have been done in a wholesale denomination, so let's say under an exemption of the prospectus regulation, but of course, potentially within the future we can see more, let's say, I don't know, larger, let's say, issuances which potentially are offered to the public and then prospectus regulation compliant. I I can maybe to conclude and not be, in terms of timing, but one can say that indeed in these proofs of concepts there is involvement and investment, both in terms of cost and in timing, both from issuers and from the other operators. But I think there is a bright side to it. I think we all learn, issuers, investors, lawyers, and certainly, as with any new product, it should not be just digital bonds. I think when you launch a new product, there is certainly a learning curve to it. So I think there is a path forward and certainly a possibility to scale the market for digital instruments.
Thank you very much, Boyka. Then we have Michael Schumacher from the VCL. He's a project manager in market infrastructure and payment system, and is part of the working group at the Eurosystem, right, for the CBDC topic. So, Michael, with you, we would like to check again how the adoption of blockchain technology can help the financial industry more from a central bank perspective.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. So, from the central bank perspective, how can we put it that way? We see the market moving toward DLT because the advantage or the opportunities brought by this new technology, it's been discussed by the people here, it's quite obvious. So the first motivation when it started to become the buzzword DLT is that it was deemed to be really safe, resilient, so distributed at several places so that you don't rely on only one central ledger to get the accuracy. Basically, your data, your transactions are recorded at several places nearly at the same time and irrevocable, and basically that's a big advantage. Also, what the market operator were expecting from that is efficiency first. Now, Philippe, you explained that the market expects to get some more revenues, but initially it's quite clear that basically the idea was to make things faster with less efforts. No longer needed for reconciliation because everybody is supposed to have the same version of the ledger where all the transactions are recorded the same way and the balances are the same for everybody. And that's where the idea was. So all the operators were rushing into that direction to explore and build something. And also, basically, that technology comes with tokenization. And basically, that's where you can gain new revenues because tokenization allows, or is supposed to allow, to broaden the capital market. So basically, simple commodities that were not exchangeable, tradable, or financialized in the past, basically, you tokenize it and you can start doing business with that for instruments that were not so smoothly tradable upfront. So all these are the expected benefits for the market. Not especially for we central bank. So basically, we central bank, we look at what the market is doing, and our business is to provide central bank money, fiat currency, and so on, and we just want to have our central bank money aligned with the evolution of the technologies. But we don't gain a direct benefit out of that. But now, okay, speaking as a central banker and seeing things externally, so quite neutral, besides all those expected benefits, we certainly see some risks. I'm wondering, Philippe, whether you had a look at my notes before, because we found the same. So fragmentation, that's basically the major risk we see for the moment. So just to get started, maybe fragmentation, to continue, with the legal framework. So if we speak of financial instruments, for a long time you had the traditional financial instrument issued by the CSD in application of national domestic laws. And then you had CSDR coming, just bringing uniformity on how the CSD were working, and basically the rules are known the same for everybody. And with that idea, the Commission came with the DLT pilot regime, trustful that the operators keen to operate DLTs and so on would go there and adhere to and seek a license, and that did not happen so well. So, so far, there's not a single DLT pilot regime license that's been delivered. So why is it working anyway? and that's where we fear risk fragmentation from the legal perspective, is that there are, in some markets, national laws. So we have digital assets laws in only 3 countries, basically. So there is Germany, and the law has been invoked already by LuxSD before. We have France, and we have Luxembourg, the 2021 law, saying that if you are licensed to hold traditional assets, you can also hold a digital version of those traditional assets, and that's the way it is. So in the future, we don't know whether the DLT pilot regime will be adhered to. We don't know whether it's going to be extended, made definitive, or go to the 6-year planned duration. We don't know if other jurisdictions will come with their own law saying that, look, what's going on? It seems to work in Germany, France, and Luxembourg. Let's make our own law. Huh? And we see things coming in some countries. So uncertainty about legal fragmentation. And that's the soft part, because now if we go in the hard part of things, it's a new technology. So basically you have market operators building their own DLT as per their own rule, as per their own vision of the technicity of it. And basically, and now it's cooking well. Even in Luxembourg, you have several active DLTs already today, built as per their own internal specification, which are not the same necessarily as the competitors. And be it on purpose or not, because if you invest, you want to keep your client, or be it just because there is no harmonization, no standards available yet, all those DLTs, we fear that they will, technically speaking, not be able to work with each other. That's a major risk, because not even speaking about the policy that is lacking to force those DLT operators to work together. We are far from having that. So basically, in the end, you can have major actors, which are really heavyweights on the market, promoting their own version of the DLT. But in the end, it's going to be a kind of silo. So it's going to be usable per their clients. And when you come to the secondary market activity, when you want to sell that digital asset to a client who's registered in another DLT, guess what? We feel it's not going to be working. So basically, well, from a central bank perspective, that's our fear, but we hope the market will find a way to make things smooth and efficient.
Thank you, Michael. For the happiness of Joanna and Jade, we have already exceeded a little bit the time, right? I'll ask the panelists to keep to 1-2 minutes for the rest of the panel. So maybe I'll start again from you, Xavier. Before we talked a bit about the benefits, right? And now what are the concerns that investors have in your experience on this type of digital instruments? What we need to do for the investor to be there?
Well, we need a level playing field. Because on the one hand, a lot of people, including some authorities, like with the central banks, are pushing for the adoption of CBDC, digital transactions, and so on. But when you look at security, as of today, digital security are not repo eligible at the central banks. That's a major problem, because no investor will buy something that is much less liquid than a traditional security if they don't have the same features, okay? And I think, likewise, at the moment, you are facing many obstacles as an investor in terms of onboarding, in terms of connecting, in terms of... So you have a product that is, as of today, inferior to what the traditional world is offering, especially as the traditional world is working very fine. I mean, I think it's very feasible in the coming years to solve these issues so that the blockchain product becomes better than the traditional product, but it will take not only some incentives in terms of offering this repo eligibility and this feature so that the level playing field is, the playing field is even, but maybe it will also take some form of pressure. Because if you leave market participants the option to do nothing, this is exactly what they will be doing.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Beatrice, to you now on the digital euro topic, right? Where do you see useful for 𝗟𝘃𝗲𝗁𝗍, in which area?
Concerning CBDCs, Concerning CBDCs, the main interest is the possibility to use a digital currency rather than choosing between all the different private cryptos. It brings more safety to to start dealing with blockchain and link the security side with the digital cash safer side. It's for me the main interest.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. And Catherine, you talked already about ECB trial. So what is the role now of the CBDC for D7 and Deutsche Börse?
Yeah, it's about programmability. So if we think about traditional settlement, today you have European investors using their cash in central bank money or commercial bank money to settle the transactions. Also, and it was mentioned before, when you have interest payment on a bond, there is a lot of notification, cash advices, and plenty of reconciliation. In future, you will have smart contract having access to a central bank digital payment solution. So that's basically the programmability aspect of the payment that could bring benefits such as reduction of operational costs, less reconciliation, real-time settlement. So that's what we are looking for. Bitcoin, stablecoins, we know they are available today, but at the moment, they cannot replace the cash leg of the transaction at institutional level because they have not reached the level of maturity that is necessary to guarantee the stability of the system, and they are not issued neither by entities that can guarantee their liquidity. For this reason, ECB has launched the ECB Eurosystem trials and experiments to explore the potential of the DLT for settling wholesale transaction in high-quality money, central bank money. We have been invited to be part of these trials as CSD, acting as a market DLT operator, and to optimally support the goal of these experimentations. We have enhanced the digital platform, D7, that I was referring to for the digital issuances, with DLT capabilities in collaboration with Google Cloud. It's our technical provider and a partner. So now, basically, we are going beyond the digitization of the securities that I was referring to, and we want to settle tokenized instruments on private permission blockchain using the ECB's cash solution, so Trigger solution from Bundesbank, the TIPS Hashlink from Banca d'Italia, and full DLT interoperability from Banque de France. The project is involving the three CSDs that we have in our group, because the idea is really to support issuances on different jurisdictions. So last week, and probably you have seen this in the different social medias, 2 tokenized 5 million bonds have been successfully issued using DLT. So it was with DK Bank as issuer and DZ Bank as investor, and for the second issuances, they swapped the role. And in that case, D7 was connected to the Trigger solution with seamless cash settlement in T2. So far, the feedback was quite positive. On one hand, we issue on DLT, which increased transparency and automation, reducing the need for manual intervention. And on the other hand, using central bank money enabled high-quality cash on-chain, so safety and liquidity. Lux CSD is currently preparing, as we speak, the next use cases, which will also involve the other cash solution from Banque de France and Banca d'Italia.
Thank you, Catherine. Now, Philippe, back to you on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, right? What's the role of the CBDC there?
Well, we are also involved in and contributing to the contact group of the ECB in that respect. Although actually we don't touch cash. So operationally, as such, CBDC will not change anything to us. Now, it's part of the ecosystem. And when you talk to different counterparties in the value chain so far, one of the elements which is asked for is generically cash on chain. And yes, there are, well, nobody imagines that we would settle an EIB bond against Bitcoin, although you never know. And yes, stablecoins have their flaws, although we see some reliable actors moving into that space too, and MiCA probably will help. But CBDC, well, it's central bank money, so it's the most secure money you could imagine having. In particular, if you deal in big tickets, in particular if you deal in the issuances of very serious issuers. So it is an element which is going to complement the ecosystem, which is going to make it more credible, which will not be used probably for all type of trades, all type of instruments, like we see in the legacy world. And if the ecosystem evolves and becomes more credible, well, for the stock exchange, it might mean also more listings and more trading.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Boyga, would ask you as well, in short, where do you see the hurdles for the adoption of this new technology in the industry?
Yeah, sure. I'll be very brief. I think I'll name just 2 legal hurdles, or maybe 1 operational. So one was already evoked by Philippe, which is the requirement actually to register in book entry form transferable securities with CSD in order to list them on a regulated market. Another is actually to settle in cash. Here we have the so the ECB trials, and that's the operational hurdle is this fragmentation that was, let's say, invoked already here several times. I think for the first 2, the pilot regime promised a lot. So far, has to deliver. I guess also the industry together with the pilot regime and the legislators. But one interesting thing is the ECB trials, how do they play in this whole ecosystem? I think they have been a catalyst and a catalyst to the market. We have seen, let's say, a bunch of participants to wave 1. However, this number has been 4 times higher with wave 2. And certainly we see among the participants CSDs. So that may be maybe an answer to the limited liquidity of let's say, digital instruments. Also, let's say, participants are connecting to each other, testing different solutions, and this not in a sandbox environment, though in a controlled environment, but still in compliance with the, let's say, existing legal and regulatory framework, which presumably should allow them to then, let's say, continue some of these transactions in the normal outside, let's say, outside of the experiments world. So certainly, I think it's a welcome initiative by the Eurosystem, and we do see it as, let's say, a catalyst for many players, and also for let's say, other transactions in other instruments, not only in digital bonds.
Thank you very much. Michael, we cannot but conclude with you, right, on the topic of the CBDC. So from the perspective of the central bank, again, we have seen use case PVP, we have seen use case DVP. What can you share with us on what is being learned by the Eurosystem?
Okay, so maybe just one word about our role. So why we are getting involved in that. So our role is to issue safe money, the safest money, possibly. And basically, we just observed at the Eurosystem level that the market was going through many and more DLT experiments. And when a cash leg was required, it always came with the same conclusion. The market failed to find it. So we'll not even speak about Bitcoin, but there is Tether and so on. So there are other stable coins, well known, but with a few variations of a few basis points per year, it's not sufficient. And call it the way you want, so private initiative, so with Mika it's going to be ETM, but private initiative are just only used locally. So when a specific entity, a bank or DLT operator issue its own coins, so it works quite well in its own ecosystem, but again, when you want to have security exchanges between client of institution A versus B, it implies a credit risk. Why would bank B take a stablecoin issued by A without being sure of what's going to cook after? So basically, remembering that the job of a central bank is to provide the safest money possible, the market came to the central banks at the beginning locally in France, a bit Luxembourg, Germany, and so on, and then at the ECB level, just calling for help. So we started reminding that when you speak about wholesale cash, it already exists. So for years and years and years, we have the target services where the central banks are providing accounts of specific institution, banks to make it short, a digital version of the euro, not for the retail, but for wholesale activity, it exists. This being said, it's not fit for purpose because the way we source target balances digital euro, it's not compatible with the DLT technologies operated by the market. So we've been asked to come with some ideas, some solution. And then how did we come with that? We started what we call exploratory work. So it's definitely not a project that's going to deliver something in the end. It's not an open sandbox. It's just kind of a limited framework with a limited time frame. All in all, it's 1 year duration, but the execution is only planned for 6 months, where we offer 3 different solutions to source cash to eligible DLT operators. I will not say what's eligible, but not everybody is welcome. You must be reliable and authorized. Just a few words, I don't want to be too technical, but we don't necessarily have to be DLT-based at our end. So we have the German solution, which is basically reusing the target balance with the intermediation of a new technology that is capable of exchanging, dialoguing, connecting to asset DLT. Then we have the Banque de France solution, which is basically the sole issuing a token. So it's a cash token, but I need to clarify something then after. And we have another solution, Banca d'Italia, which is using a different pot of liquidity. So it's not the target pot as in Germany, but it's not a token. And when I said that Banque de France is using a token, so that rings a bell, or it means it's cash on chain. Yes, definitely, but under certain limitations. So what the market wanted initially is that the Eurosystem would be offering a token that would be distributed on their local solution. And thanks for this, trust us, we know what we do. We'll keep you posted. So no, definitely, it's just not something we want to risk or to go for. So, and I'm not sure that that's going to go anywhere. So no final decision, but the odds are not good that's going to go there. Then we saw the market come in with the ID, and the BIS, Bank International Statement, is calling that unified ledger. That it would be good to have in Europe a new DLT infrastructure where everything is there. Central bank money, tokenized deposits, or commercial bank money but tokenized, and also securities, tokenized or digital and native securities, and basically you do the business there. Certainly it's a good idea, but it would take some time to go there if someday we want to go there. So the intermediary solution was basically to provide what we call interoperability solution. So the securities are held on asset DLT. The cash is held on the 3 central bank solution that I mentioned. And there is a technical system where both meet. Voilà, so we shall see. The explorations are taking place, basically, with first positive results. And we are measuring the performance, we are measuring the appetite of the market for this or that solution, and we do it in a structured way. So we have deployed key performance indicators with surveys to be answered by the market participants. And in the end, Q1 2025, we shall see what the answers are. We shall see whether one solution is preferred by the market, and we shall see if we do something after or not.
Thank you, Michael. As you can see, we can talk hours about the topic. There are many applications, right? But I'm sure you can ask more questions during the network later. But thank you very much to the panelists for this very interesting discussion. And again, Joanna and Jade, thank you very much for the organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're coming now to the last topic of today. EU securitization regulation. Our securitization working group is currently updating the paper, its position paper on the EU securitization regulation. I'm looking really forward to receive the paper. next week, hopefully, or the week after. And yeah, and for this interesting topic, I have the pleasure to welcome on stage 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗂 and Andreas Heinzmann. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲 is the co-chair of the working group, and he's also a partner and country head of the law firm Simmons & Simon. And Andreas who is also a board member of 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗂 and is the sponsor of this working group, and he's a partner at the law firm 𝗟𝘂𝗅𝗲𝗄𝗂 in Luxembourg. Guys, be efficient, you know.
We're late. Do you mind, Olga? Sorry, can we have the remote control? I think we have slides as well. You want to be the master of it?
Yeah. Yeah, good evening, everyone in the audience. Holger, thanks for the kind introduction. Indeed, we're a bit behind the time, but I think we started also a bit later, so we will try to make it as efficient as possible. So the topic of today is the EU securitization regulation. It's an important topic, obviously for the lawyers, but I think also for many other people and members of 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗂 in the room. I'm very happy, and because we're excited about the panel, because we are currently finalizing an update of the existing position paper of the 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗂 on the EU securitization regulation. We will come to that a bit later. Yeah, I would say let's delve directly into the topic, and we set the scene for the EU securitization regulation.
Thank you very much, Andreas. So why we're doing also this presentation is really because we updated the paper. There has been some development in the recent years, or not so recent, on the EU securitization regulation. So in 2021, that was the non-performing exposure securitization. I think you all remember the COVID time, default of SMEs, so that was implemented for that. In 2021, we also had the synthetic securitization for simple, transparent, and standardized securitization. And a bit later, in 2023, second half, we have two new updates, which is the new risk retention technical standard that were published, but taken over most of the previous recommendation of the EBA. And we had also the green securitization in the context of the EU Green Bond Standard. And I will let Andreas talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think we all know that, and we heard it also before from other speakers, that here, so to say, image and also how securitization is seen has changed over the last years. And I think now we see a very useful development for the industry. In the recent month, we have heard statements from EU policymakers, national finance ministers, but also lobbying organization emphasizing the important role of securitization in the capital markets union, but also for the financing of the green and digital transformation of the EU. I think that's a very important topic, and therefore I think also the EU securitization regulation is of utmost importance. On the other hand, the regulation as such comes directly from the EU legislator, so there is not much the local legislator can do. And what we have seen over the last years, that a certain market practice had to be established. And that's also the reason why we wanted to update the paper, because we have seen that in certain other jurisdictions in Europe, certain structures were analyzed in a different way than in Luxembourg. And therefore, the aim of the paper is also to provide certain guidance for certain structures.
We note on the slides the practical example. We probably won't have the time to tackle those today, but they will be explained and described in the paper to be updated. So I would refer those examples to you in the paper that will be published.
So very briefly, what is the purpose of the regulation? And I think now after, let's say, more than 6 years that regulation is in force, we have seen that the initial idea of the legislator has also become reality. And one important point was the standardization. The relatively fragmented securitization market in Europe should become a bit more harmonized while using more standardized documentation by the market participant. which leads obviously to more harmonization. I think that is now the case. We see that in transactions which, so to say, templates need to be completed and filled and sent to the local regulator or to ESMA. So I think these points have been fulfilled. And on the other hand, as you know, the idea or one purpose of the regulation was also to create a framework for high quality, so-called STS, simple, transparent, and standardized securitization. I think also these we see quite often now, and therefore I think here the purpose is now there, and now we need to see how the regulation lives further.
So we've seen the purpose. Now the entities concerned, so that's 5 + 1, so to speak. The SSPEs, which stands for securitization special purpose entities, so usually company incorporated to perform the securitization activity and isolated from the originator, which is another entity involved in the agreement which creates the obligations that will then be securitized. That's a bit different from original lender because the originator is involved. The original lender is actually signing the agreement that will create the obligation to be securitized or the exposure to be securitized. Then we have the sponsors. That is, in short, a category that is reserved to credit institution and investment firm that establish and manage securitizations. We have the institutional investors, so you know that category already, not to list all of them, but just as a matter of example, the insurance undertaking, reinsurance undertaking, AFMs, or management company of UCITS, for instance. And one entity that is not mentioned here, but this is with the reform in relation to the non-performing exposures, we have the servicers now. So we're done with the entities. The concept.
Well, the concept, you all know it. We have a definition in the regulation which says we need to have credit risk, we need to have a tranche credit risk, and we also should not have any exemption like specialized lending. So let me just briefly touch upon the credit risk. The idea is that a securitization vehicle acquires loan receivables, loan portfolio credit risk, and the underlying assets, so to say, or the payments derived from these assets have to meet a dependency test with regard to the financial instruments issued by the vehicle, meaning that the underlying assets, they are funding the payments under the financial instruments issued by the securitization vehicle.
Then we have the trenching, and we go to the other slides. So trench means a contractually established segment of credit risk, where a position in the segment entails a risk of credit loss greater than or less than another segment, some kind of subordination and different returns, without taking account of credit protection provided by the third parties. So in practice, you would have an SSP issuing different classes of notes to which a different interest is attached and that are subordinated between each other, meaning that there will be a senior tranche, mezzanine tranche, and a junior tranche. Basically, the aim of such structure is to accommodate the needs of various investors having a different risk profile or risk appetite. And the subordination of tranches is used really to allocate the returns. So the trenching and the subordination is one of the key elements of the EU securitization regulation. One additional element also that you see quite often, almost always, is that the mezzanine or junior tranches will usually waive their right to be repaid as long as the senior tranche is outstanding. And in terms of the player in those seniority of tranches, you have the pension fund, insurance companies, financial institutions that are usually the holder of the senior tranche, and you have more, I would say, risk takers such as debt fund or hedge fund in the junior tranche. What we are tackling in the paper that is interesting also, and I won't answer the question now, otherwise we will be over time, I think. This is the analyzing of different structures. So would equity constitute a tranche? The response is not straightforward and regularly requests an analysis on a case-by-case basis. Can you issue other instruments than debt securities and be subject to EU securitization? The answer is yes, and we have combination of loan and notes and subordination between each of those instruments. Can a securitization or an operation transaction be subject to the EU securitization rules if there is only a single investor? Yes, again, if there is any kind of trenching. So that's what we see in terms of trenching, and there's different examples like that that are falling or not under the EU securitization.
Well, and what we have also in the EU securitization regulation is the fact that even though the requirements of securitization of credit risk and tranching are fulfilled, if, for example, we have a specialized lending securitization operation, then the EU securitization regulation does not apply. Mainly these specialized lending operations are project financing. So we here already see a bit the ESG aspect, which has been already enshrined in the EU securitization regulation. And we see that now further with the green bond framework, which has been mentioned before.
Thank you, indeed. So now that we've seen the concept, what are the actual applicable rules to it? So there's the risk retention, and I will move 2 slides ahead if my IT skills allow it. Okay. For the risk retention, why? What is the requirement? Who? Why? So it goes back to the financial crisis in 2008, when you had some certain model like originate to distribute model, where you have a lender or another entity generating loan, externalizing that, not holding them on balance sheet. And so there, I would say, credit granting criteria were a bit more relaxed. And so the purpose in the EU securitization regulation was to align the interest of the originator, sponsor, original lender on one side, and those of the investor on the other side. And to do so, the EU securitization regulation provides for a skin in the game, which is a 5% retention of the material net economic interest in the securitization. This risk retention cannot be mitigated, cannot be hedged as well. That's a real skin in the game. You have some different approach as to how to retain the risk, and I would probably not enter into details. There's 5 of them. You can mention the vertical risk model risk retention, the horizontal model risk retention, and there's other models that apply to revolving securitization or the first loss retention piece as well. And I will come back, I'm trying, then to the other point, due diligence and transparency reporting.
All right, very quickly, so we have then the requirement of risk retention, and the other thing which has been imposed by the EU securitization regulation is that the investors, they need to carry out due diligence in order to make sure that they acquire a good and secure product, because there is not only credit risk, there may be other risks like counterparty risk, liquidity risks, or agency risk, which are involved in the product, and therefore due diligence requirements are important for the EU securitization regulation. The same is then true for transparency and reporting, depending on whether it's a public or a private securitization. Certain data need to be provided to the regulator. Here in Luxembourg, it's the CSF or the ESMA. But that is also now very well established, and I think the market has very well accepted these requirements. Maybe one topic which is also important to distinguish is that in the EU securitization regulation, we talk about contractual subordination of claims. This is maybe now a bit, let's say, a boring legal topic, but in the securitization law, in the Article 64, we have now rules how certain subordination rules apply to financial instruments issued by a securitization vehicle. And it is clear that, for example, variable debt is subordinated to fixed income debt, which is subordinated to beneficiary shares, which are subordinated to shares of a securitization vehicle, and for a securitization fund, it would be the units. And here now there are examples in the market that certain players stay, even though we have a tranching, we have a subordination, they rely on the opinion on the market practice in Luxembourg that if we have legal subordination, then the requirements of the EU securitization regulation do not necessarily apply. Obviously, it's a case-by-case analysis, but we have this flexibility in the law.
I see that we're already over time, Andreas. So maybe just
make it quicker.
Just to be quick on that, there are obviously some credit enhancement that is possible, either at the level of the underlying assets that go through guarantee insurance policies. So you will insure, it's very bespoke, so to speak, because you can insure certain threshold, a certain percentage of losses, and you have also liquidity commitment. Obviously, in the paper, we describe that in greater details, and we provide also the example. I think we're almost on time, and sorry for being a bit late on this.
Maybe let me just, before we close, one point, because indeed we mentioned the paper. So let me thank all the members involved. I hope I do not forget anyone. So thank you very much. A.O. Sherman, AKD, Arendt, Clifford Chance, Elvinger, GSK, Loyens, Maples, PwC, and Simmons. And yeah, let me also thank Markus Zenz from PwC. He's also a co-chair. 𝗟𝘂𝘅𝗲𝗄𝗆, thanks for your leadership and for bringing this paper forward. We are looking forward to the publication. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. As Vice Chair of the 𝗟𝘂𝗍𝗂 and for this third edition of our Capital Markets, 𝗟𝘂𝗍𝗂 Capital Markets Day, I'm glad to be able to share some last words, reflections, and draw this event to a close. And I promise to be very short. You've heard from an array of eminent speakers about the importance of making further progress in our moving and evolving capital markets industry, the importance of unity, and especially the Capital Markets Union, not least Minister of Finance Gilles Roth, and also Julie Baker, highlighting what has been achieved to date, why we have seen a greater political momentum for this project, and how it is hoped to see this project developing further. The deepening of the CMU and its related progress should be adapted to the challenges and financial needs that the EU faces. And the stakes are high, as the CMU is a key element to ensure our long-term European competitiveness and prosperity. This was followed by discussions across a series of interesting panels, cover key topics for our capital markets industry. So from the insight on debt securities issuance processes in Luxembourg, through to a digital deep dive on ECB trials to be conducted in a productive environment, and ending with navigating the new EU securitization regulation. Our estimated panelists shed light on these dynamic subjects. Sharing knowledge, technicalities, voicing opportunities, and addressing challenges reflects perfectly one of the aims of our association, and we are very proud to see the involvement and active participation of our members and their representatives to build the way for a future in capital markets. Listening to the overall discussions, it seems that there is a collective realization that we've not yet done enough to release the full potential of our industry and more broadly the EU capital markets. And hopefully this will come with a fresh waves of support to go the extra mile. We hope, in the name of the 𝗟𝘂𝗍𝗂, that you are coming away this year again with some valuable insight. And you will continue your participation to make our industry growing in the right direction. Thank you for your attention, and I may conclude by extending my congratulations to everyone involved in making today's event a success. Look forward to seeing you next year, but also at our other future events in Luxembourg or abroad. And I think now I can invite all of you to continue the nice discussions while sharing a drink and nice food together. Thank you.